Hi everyone, welcome to Gamers MediaWare. Welcome to Gamers MediaWare. Today we're going to build a mid-range gaming PC on a budget. Stay tuned to see how. Alright, so what we're going to put in this is AMD Ryzen 1300X. It's a quad-core processor. Clocks at about 3.4 gigahertz. 8 gigs of RAM. It's a 3000 speed, which is all Ryzen needs. A 1050 Ti, which has 4 gigabytes of VRAM. Should run COD and anything else at the moment. We got a 120 gig SSD. 1 terabyte game drive. And just a basic gigabyte motherboard. It's a B350 motherboard. It should match up with the Ryzen 3 very well. I'm going to use a stock cooler master case. That's about it. Alright, now we're going to install the CPU. First thing we got to do is remove these hold downs for what would be a normal AMD stock cooler. Like I said in the video, it's kind of counterproductive that they use a stock cooler with threaded screws, but I digress. So we'll get that out of here. We kind of fast forward this video so it's not so long. So yeah, we got those hold downs off. Now what we're going to do is lift the little handle up. Put this 1300X in the slot the way it needs to go. Remember, if you're installing this, make sure you find the arrow on the CPU and the motherboard and put them going the same direction. Should be just a fit, and then the lever drops, lock it in. Now this is a brand new cooler, so I didn't need to apply thermal compound, but typically if you're using a cooler that isn't new or an aftermarket one, a lot of times you have to apply your own thermal compound. But for the 1300X, it doesn't get that hot, so the stock thermal compound will do just fine. This threaded type, you really got to get the threads going pretty good before it actually catches. For some reason, these are really tight. I think the springs on them are a little bit too tight if you ask me. But once you get them to go, they do go. So again, this is a 1300X, so it's a quad-core, 4-thread CPU. It's obviously not the best Ryzen out there, but if you're just going to play games, it does very well. I would say the best bang for your buck is a 1500X, but it was more expensive than this one. And I actually had this one laying around from another build, so didn't have to buy another processor. So, all right, cooler's on. Now we're going to go and stick this 8 gigs of RAM in here. Like I said, this is a 3000 speed stick. For Ryzen, I would say probably to get a 3200, but you have to remember when you're only using a quad core, I don't think the infinity fabric between the different modules and the CPU actually get utilized all that much, so the speed's not a huge deal with the smaller Ryzens, but it's still a big deal. All right, so if you watch closely, you'll notice I make a big mistake here. I wanted to put this in the video because it's a common mistake, and I always say don't forget the IO shield, but if you watch closely, I missed a huge step right there. Now, you watch me here, I'll kind of be trying to get stuff to go in. And for those of you that might have caught it, I want to know how surprised you are, as well as myself, on why a case like this didn't come with standoffs pre-installed. Every case I've worked with in the last 2 years, even the cheaper ones, like the DIY PC branded stuff, all comes with the standoffs built in. See me I'm trying to get the screw in there. I can't figure out why it won't catch. And I just never bothered to look. Like I said, they almost all come with it. Here's me again trying to get her to go in. I'm going, what's going on here, you know? Finally, I decide that's the problem. Takes me a little bit longer than that, though. Yep, I felt over there. Sometimes they don't put them on that edge, so I thought maybe it was just that edge. And I looked under there and didn't see any, so I'm like, you know what? I got that middle one to go. And a lot of times they will go, but if you put them... Oh, actually, that middle one does have a hold down, or standoff. That's why. So they had one standoff and no others. That makes no sense. Cooler Master. No sense, Cooler Master. But I'll tell you what, though. Other than that, this case is actually very, very cool. Came with 3 RGB fans in the front. Sadly, this motherboard didn't support RGB. So we probably are going to get an aftermarket header just to plug into a SATA and have a controller. But it's a good case. It feels like good quality. It's probably got 360 rad support in the front if you're into liquid cooling. So yeah, it's a good case. I'll probably do a full review on it later, but for now we're just going to build in it. Get these stupid standoffs in here. There we go. Now this is a micro ATX motherboard in a standard ATX case, so it looks a little bit smaller. But this is a mid-tower PC case, not a full tower, so it actually fits in there pretty good. I feel like it fills the case up good enough to where it looks decent. Anyways, looked at those new Walmart PCs they're coming out with. They look a lot more janky than this, and they're charging quite a bit for those things. Ignore that guy in frame there, whoever that is. Probably Dietsky. All right, we're getting some screws done here finally. Got the standoffs in. That makes a big difference, right? Any comments below if you've made a mistake before? I haven't made that mistake since I was probably about 15. I sent a motherboard back to Tiger Direct back in the day, probably about 3 times. Couldn't figure out why I kept shorting out. Come to find out, you need these little standoffs in a case. One of the first pieces I built. That learned the hard way, I guess. Okay. All right, now we're getting the hard drive for the SSD in there, which would be his boot drive. I guess that's 120 gigabyte. It's good for your OS, install Steam, install your applications on there, and then put all the games for those applications on your game drive, which I feel is probably the best way to do it. All right, so I'm going to try to hook up some of these smaller wires. We got a fan header here, trying to find a home for that. This motherboard only has 2 fan headers, one for the CPU and one for a case fan, which is your rear exhaust fan. So the 3 on the front we had to plug in directly to the power supply. So I'm going to go ahead and get the power supply bracket off here, and then we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll get power supply in, get all the cables run, and get all that stuff done. As you see, now we're back. We got nice fancy cable mod cables run black and white. Looks pretty nice, I think. Kind of got the case out of frame here a little bit. I apologize for that. So we got all the little cables done. That's USB 3.0, the front panel connectors, USB 2.0, all the fans got connected, all the drives got connected. Now we're going to just loosen up these screws for the back 2 plates to put this graphics card in, which is again a 1050 Ti gigabyte model. It's got 4 gigabytes of VRAM. It clocks to 1400 or 1500 megahertz stock. If it's cool enough, I've seen them go as high as 16 or 1700. Kind of rare, but with only the 2 fans, it doesn't get going too crazy. If you get one with a 1050 Ti with a power plug on it, it actually will hit 16, 1700 pretty easy. We've got a couple of them in a couple rigs, and I've been impressed with them. So yeah, line that card up on the PCI slot and with the 2 slots in the back. And remember, you're going to hear a little click when it pushes down. That means it's been installed correctly. This one does not have an additional power plug, like I said, so just the motherboard itself, which supplies, I believe, 75 watts on its own. Don't quote me on that. So anything over that, you need to have a power plug, but obviously with the 1050 Ti, like, it's not a very hungry card. But it does run most of your games. We've been super impressed with them. We've had a few of them, actually. I've had one personally for a while, and then my mini rig. And then we had, my nephew had one, my cousin has one, and they said they play fine. This is probably the worst of the few, but all right, everything's done as far as we can tell. We'll get this glass side panel on, and yeah, that's about all there is. All right, that's it. We built the mid-level budget build PC. As you saw, it went together pretty smoothly. And what we'll do is at the end of the video, we'll have some links to look at the benchmark, see how it performs. If you're curious about building one like this or similar to it, then you can see how it performs. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and drop a hint if you want to see something totally different than what we're doing. Thanks, everyone.